So WD-40 is by far the most consumable liquid in my garage because of its fast usabilities, apart from possibly coffee because I consume a bit of that as well. But jokes aside, I'm pretty sure once you finish watching this video, there'll be a few in here that you start implementing yourself, especially the last two. They're actually my favorite. So I use this quite often on rubber and plastics. It's not harmful, but it does clean it and it gives it a fantastic shine once you've done, especially after you've cleaned the bike and just go around and find all those little spots that just need a bit of a touch up. So this will work on pretty much most bikes, especially the older ones. You'll notice a huge difference. Most of the new bikes have a Teflon liner inside them, but it still works and it works well. It works really well on your throttle cable or cables, giving you a better throttle response. It works great on your clutch to make that clutch easier to pull in, and also your choke cable. And while you're at it, throw some on your kickstand. It'll feel like you've just installed a brand new spring on it. It's actually surprisingly good at removing brake dust as well as that road grime and tar you get built up on your wheels, and it actually stops it from sticking to it. But if you get it on your tires, make sure you clean it off straight away. WD-40 is good at doing a lot of things, but if your brakes squeak, this is not the answer. So if you get any on your discs or on your brake caliper anywhere, just clean that off with some natural spirit. This is an ignition barrel out of the bike. If you can access this part, this is the actual pin that pushes out when you lock your steering. Throw a bit on there, it'll make it a lot easier to use. Once again, here's a few more tips that work on pretty much any bike that needs a little bit of attention. This is my old 43-year-old CX500 just for demonstration purposes. Throwing a little on your coil springs will not only bring them back to life, but also make it a lot easier to clean next time. And for anyone with a keen eye, yes, these shocks are actually mounted upside down. It also works really well on helmet locks as well as seat latches. I've used WD-40 for so many different things over the years, and I've never actually done damage to anything I've used it on. Let me know in the comments if you've had a bad experience with it. So here's a really good one that works on corroded metals. All you have to do is use it with steel wool, and you can get different grade steel wools like you can with sandpaper. Depending on the grade you get is depending on how harsh it's going to be. But once you're completely done, I would probably clean it all off with soapy water and then throw some wax on it to lock in that finish so that it doesn't corrode again. I haven't actually tried this one, so I'm going to leave it up in the air. Let me know in the comments if you have actually used it and it does work. It stops it from apparently fogging your mirrors up, especially in the rain. If you have any sticky buttons, it works quite well at freeing those up. It does work quite well at freeing up any of those key locks on your bike, but I would probably use this as a last resort. The better option would be using something like a dry lube, as in a graphite powder. That is going to be 10 times better, and it won't attract all the dust and grime to get inside your lock. But it does work extremely well on the black plastics of your bike and make them look brand new again. One thing that I started to do recently was after I've washed my bike, I'll coat my entire black painted engine with it, and damn does it look good. I've had the most amount of compliments after doing this compared to any other time. I think it's just because it looks shiny and people are attracted to shiny things, right? I actually use so much WD-40, especially when I'm fabricating and machining things, that I actually buy it in bulk and put it in a little spray bottle. And this gives me the ability to go from a squirt to a mist, which has its own advantages. If you've ever taken electrical tape that's old off a wiring loom and you've left with all that sticky residue, I can tell you what, this stuff strips it in no time and brings those wires back to brand new again. Here's a cool little tip, because I've got 3 cans that have a little bit of liquid still in the bottom, but I can't access it because there's not enough air. Grab your air compressor, grab a nozzle, rip the lid off, push the stem down as you're pulling the trigger, fill it up with air for a few seconds. You might lose a tiny little bit of liquid, but I can tell you what, you'll give that can a new lease of life. A couple of things that I use it for all of the time. The first one is rust removal, like I mentioned earlier, using steel wool or even a scourer, and also rust prevention. So for this motorcycle tank that I'm building from scratch, I am going to be leaving it for a couple of days and I don't want it to get all rusty, so I'll throw this on, wipe it off lightly, and it won't rust on me. Same thing for any tools that I may have picked up from a garage sale, like these vice grips. I'll de-rust them and then put a bit of WD-40 on to keep the rust at bay. So one of the most common things I've seen this being used for is to clean your chain on your bike. Yes, it does work. It's probably not the best option. There's probably better ones out there. Just make sure if you do this, you use a good chain lube once you complete and clean everything off the wheels and tires before you go for a ride. For anyone thinking your O-rings might get damaged on your chain if you use WD-40, there's a video by MC Garage who debunked that entire theory. I'll leave that link in the description below. And here's a fun fact about WD-40 you may not know. It was actually invented in 1953 by a company called the Rocket Chemical Company. It was a staff of 3 and they set out to invent a rust prevention solvent in San Diego, California, and it took them 40 attempts to get the water displacing formula correct. So the name WD-40 actually stands for water displacement perfected on the 40th try. And if it's good for the aerospace industry, it's good for me. Two of my most common uses for this is a lubricant for when I'm cutting steel, aluminium, or even cutting steel with a drill bit. And sometimes you'll get those stubborn bolts that just do not want to come out no matter what you do. So you can put a bit of WD-40 on, let it soak, or possibly, if that doesn't work, use some heat. If you want to see another WD-40 hack video that I made that's really popular, go and check it out here. And if you want to see more bike building videos, right here. And once you're done with everything on your bike and you come inside to wash your hands and realize you've run out of hand cleaner, guess what? WD-40 also cleans your hands and it's non-toxic. Who would have thought?